"You're not going to believe what I found inside," the voice said over the phone. Detective Joel Adams sat up straighter in his chair. It was early morning in the city of Mayford, and the sun had barely risen. His small office at the Mayford Police Department still smelled like stale coffee from yesterday, and the heater rattled in the corner. Joel rubbed his eyes trying to focus. "Who is this?" he asked. "This is Officer Nelson from the Riverbend Patrol," the voice replied. "We arrested a homeless man this morning for sneaking into an old storage building. We usually don't call detectives for something like that, but he found something inside." Joel's heart skipped. What did he find? There was a metal chair with leather belts on it, bloodstains on the floor, and an ID badge. Joel's grip on the phone tightened. What kind of badge? "The badge belongs to Detective Ryan Chase. The one who disappeared 4 years ago." Joel stopped breathing for a second. Ryan had been his partner, his friend. And one cold evening he went to meet someone for a case, and never came back. "Where is this place?" Joel asked. "Old brick building off West Pine Road, near the edge of town. Behind the closed-down car repair shop. It's called Hollow Creek Storage. Unit 19. I'm coming right now. Keep everyone out of that unit until I arrive." Joel grabbed his coat and rushed outside. His car tires screeched as he pulled out of the station lot. The morning traffic hadn't started yet, and that was good. His mind was racing faster than any car on the road. 4 years there had been no trace of Ryan. No body, no clues. Just whispers that he had gotten too close to a case involving missing girls. Joel had always blamed himself for not going with him that day. He sped down the quiet roads, his heart thumping. He passed tall weeds, broken fences, and forgotten buildings until he reached the place, Hollow Creek Storage. The place looked like it hadn't been used in years. A crooked sign hung by one chain, and the metal fence had holes in it. Several police cars were already there. Yellow tape marked the entrance of one unit. Detective Adams, Officer Nelson greeted him. "This way." Joel stepped inside the storage unit and felt his stomach turn. The walls were covered in shiny silver foil. A single chair stood in the center, held down by bolts. Straps hung from the arms and legs. Dark stains covered the floor beneath it. A small table beside it held tools, screwdrivers, wires, and something that looked like pliers. And right there, on the edge of the table, was Ryan's badge, and his favorite baseball cap. Joel swallowed hard and stepped closer. The smell was faint but familiar, sweat, rust, something sour. The foil on the walls reflected his own horrified face. "It's like someone was keeping a prisoner in here," Nelson said quietly. "The foil? Maybe to block sounds or signals?" "Who found it?" Joel asked, pulling out his camera to snap pictures. "A man named Martin Wells. Homeless. He came in looking for stuff to sell and ran out screaming." "Where is he now?" "At the station. He's scared but seems truthful." Joel nodded. He continued taking photos, not wanting to miss a single detail. He had seen strange things during his career, but nothing like this. The setup was too perfect, too planned. Someone had used this place over and over again. Just then a car pulled up outside. A man in a gray suit stepped out, flanked by 2 officers. "That's the building owner," Nelson said. "He wants to help." The man approached with a fake-looking smile. "Good morning. I'm Trevor Langley. I own this property. I was told something unusual was found." Joel studied him. Expensive suit, shiny watch, smooth voice, someone used to being in control. "We found signs of torture and a missing officer's badge," Joel said. "I need rental records for this unit." Trevor pulled out a small binder. "This unit was rented to a Mr. Paul Simmons 5 years ago. Paid everything in cash, up front. I never saw him again." Joel raised an eyebrow. "You rented this place without ID? It's not illegal. People rent units during messy divorces or business breakups. I don't ask questions." Joel didn't trust him, but there wasn't enough yet to push. "Where do you keep the full records?" "At my home office," Trevor said. "I can take you there." Joel glanced at the scene again. "Let's go." He followed Trevor through quiet roads toward the rich part of town. Neat lawns. Big houses. Fancy cars. Trevor's house was white, 2 stories tall, with tall columns and a shiny red door. Everything looked perfect. Inside, Trevor led him to a study with leather chairs, dark wood bookshelves, and golden lamps. The smell of expensive cologne filled the air. "I keep rental records here," Trevor said, opening a cabinet. Joel walked around looking at the walls. Dozens of photos were displayed, pictures of Trevor with children. In parks. In halls. On buses. The kids all looked nervous. Uncomfortable. None of them were the same. You work with kids? Joel asked. I run a home for orphans near the border, Trevor said. I give them food, beds, and a better future. Joel picked up a photo. The name New Sunrise House was printed on the wall behind the children. The kids looked thin and scared. Some of them don't smile, Trevor explained. They come from bad places. It takes time. He handed Joel a thick folder with names, payment receipts, and notes. Joel took it without a word. Something about the man felt wrong. Too smooth. Too prepared. Back at the station, Joel sat down with Officer Nelson and Detective Harris. Let me talk to the homeless man, Joel said. Martin Wells sat in a holding room, wrapped in a borrowed jacket. He looked tired and dirty, but his eyes were clear. I didn't mean to break in, Martin said. I was cold. Looking for stuff to sell. You found something strange, Joel said. Martin nodded. I saw the chair. The tools. The badge. I didn't touch anything. Have you seen anything else near that storage unit before? Martin hesitated. Sometimes, vans. In the middle of the night. They'd pull up and people would come out. Girls. Kids. They looked scared. Who was with them? Men. Dressed in black. They'd go into units and come out fast. Joel's mind spun. He remembered the photos. The kids. The orphanage. He flipped through the rental folder. Many units were rented by people who paid in cash. Most of the names seemed fake. The pieces were starting to come together. Trevor Langley might not be a friendly landlord. He might be something much worse. And Ryan? Maybe Ryan wasn't dead. Maybe, just maybe, he was still alive. Joel couldn't sleep that night. He lay on the couch in his small apartment, the folder of rental records open beside him, photos scattered across the coffee table. The images from the storage unit flashed through his mind, the chair, the blood, the foil-covered walls, and most of all Ryan's badge. Ryan Chase had vanished without a sound 4 years ago. They had searched everywhere. Now his badge was sitting neatly on a table in a hidden torture room. And the man who owned the place, Trevor Langley, smiled too much. Joel sat up and poured himself a cup of cold coffee. He grabbed his phone and called Detective Harris. Harris here, came the sleepy voice on the other end. It's Joel. We need to look into Trevor Langley. Everything. His businesses. His orphanage. His bank accounts. I think he's involved in something a lot bigger than just owning a storage facility. There was silence on the other end for a second. You think he had something to do with Ryan's disappearance? Joel's voice was flat. I think he knows exactly where Ryan is. They met at the station an hour later. Joel brought in the photos he had seen in Trevor's house. Copies of Trevor standing next to dozens of kids, all from different backgrounds. None of the photos had dates. None had names. I also want to check the orphanage he runs, Joel said. New Sunrise House. It's about 30 minutes out of town. We'll need a reason, Harris replied. We've got one, Joel said, holding up Martin's written statement. Girls and kids being brought to the storage unit in vans. And guess what? Some of those vans were registered to Langley Logistics. His company. Harris's eyes widened. That's enough to get a warrant. By midday they had the paperwork ready. Joel, Harris, and 2 other officers drove to the orphanage. The building looked clean and peaceful. A white sign read, New Sunrise House, a safe place for children. Flowers grew by the gate. A woman in a gray dress greeted them at the door. I'm Mrs. Yelena, she said with a thick accent. I run this home. Joel showed his badge. We're here with questions about your sponsor, Mr. Langley. Oh yes, she smiled nervously. He is very kind. He helps many children. We'd like to take a look around, Harris added. Yelena hesitated. Of course. Please come. They walked through the building. It looked decent. A classroom with old books, a cafeteria with a few kids eating soup, dorm rooms with thin beds. The walls had painted rainbows and stars. It all looked normal. But Joel saw it, the way some of the kids wouldn't meet his eyes. The way one girl flinched when he stepped too close. One girl caught his attention. She had long black hair, dark eyes, and a deep scar near her wrist. She looked about 17. She carried a tray of cups and stopped when she saw Joel. Hello, he said gently. What's your name? Suri, she whispered. Do you feel safe here, Suri? She glanced over her shoulder. Then back at him. Can I tell you something? Joel knelt beside her. Of course. My friend, she said. They took her last week. Said she was chosen. But she never came back. Where did they take her? Joel asked. I can show you, Suri whispered. But not here. Please, not in front of the others. Just then a man walked into the room. He wore a black shirt and a name tag that said, Mr. Johann. His eyes locked onto Suri. "What's going on here?" he asked sharply. Joel stood up. "Just talking to one of the kids." Johann frowned. "She has chores. Come, Suri." Joel put a hand on the man's arm. "She'll come with me. She's not allowed to leave." "I'm with the police," Joel said, showing his badge. "She can leave if she wants." Yelena entered the room, eyes wide. "Is there a problem?" "No," Joel said. "But I'll be taking Suri for a short walk." Suri stood silently beside him, clutching her small hands tightly. Outside, Joel spoke into his radio. "This is Detective Adams. I'm taking a girl named Suri with me. Possible witness. I want a patrol car nearby. Quiet tail. No sirens." Suri pointed to the back road. "That way." They drove through winding paths and dusty streets. After about 20 minutes, they turned onto a road covered with weeds. "There," she said. "That's where they take them." Joel looked up. It was an old building, once a vineyard maybe, now abandoned. Broken glass in the windows, vines crawling up the walls. And parked beside it, a black van with tinted windows. Joel's stomach dropped. He called for backup, and within minutes 2 patrol cars arrived. Joel signaled for silence. He crept toward the building with Officer Miles behind him. Suri stayed in the car with the other officers. They heard it before they saw it. Coughing. A weak, painful cough. Then crying. Joel signaled and opened the door slowly. Inside, the air was thick and heavy. The smell of sweat, mold, and something worse filled the space. A man sat tied to a chair in the center of the room. He was thin, his skin pale and scarred. His hair was long gray. His lips cracked. Joel gasped. "Ryan." The man blinked. "Joel?" he whispered. Joel ran to him, cutting the ropes. Ryan collapsed into his arms. They kept me here." "You're safe now," Joel said, voice shaking. "We've got you. We've got backup." Just then, footsteps echoed from behind the stairs. 3 men appeared, all dressed in black. One of them reached for a weapon. "Police!" Joel shouted. "Hands where I can see them." One ran. Another pulled a gun. Joel fired. The man fell. Officers tackled the rest. Joel turned back to Ryan. "It's over," he said. "We're taking you home." But Ryan looked up, eyes wide. "Joel, there's more. In the basement. Girls. Children." Joel and Officer Miles rushed downstairs. They found a locked door, forced it open. Inside were 10 kids and women huddled in the dark. Some were unconscious. Some cried softly. One girl ran to Joel and clung to his shirt. "We found them," he said into his radio. "We found them all." The sound of sirens filled the air as police cars, ambulances, and even news vans crowded around the abandoned vineyard. Red and blue lights flashed against the dead vines and broken fences. Rescue teams rushed in and out of the building carrying people on stretchers. Women, girls, and small children, many too weak to walk on their own. Joel stood beside an ambulance as paramedics wrapped a thermal blanket around Ryan's thin frame. His face was pale and the lines of pain ran deep around his eyes and mouth. His left ear was missing and 3 fingers on his right hand were gone. But he was alive. "You're safe now," Joel said, trying to keep his voice steady. Ryan nodded slowly. "Joel, thank you. I thought I'd die in that place." "You're going to a hospital now," Joel told him. "They'll take care of you. You're strong, Ryan. You survived something no one should have to." Ryan's lips trembled. "I need to talk to you. Later. About everything I know." "I'll be there," Joel promised. Nearby, Suri sat quietly next to a girl about her age. When the officers had opened the door to the basement room, the girl had screamed her name and collapsed into her arms. It was her best friend, the one she thought was lost forever. They held each other tightly now, crying as paramedics checked their breathing. Joel walked over and knelt beside them. "You were very brave," he said to Suri. "If you hadn't spoken up, we wouldn't have found this place in time." Suri wiped her tears. They were going to take her far away. Somewhere across the sea. Joel's chest tightened. "Not anymore. You're both safe now. No one will ever hurt you again." An officer ran over. "Detective, we found more." Joel stood quickly. "Where?" "The big tank outside the processing shed. It's bad." Joel followed the officer to an old metal tank, once used for fermenting grapes. The smell hit him before they even opened the hatch. Sour, metallic, and horrible. Inside the tank were bodies. 6 of them. Joel turned away, trying not to be sick. These people hadn't been rescued in time. They were someone's children too. Someone's friend. He clenched his fists. This ends now, he whispered. He pulled out his radio. Get the forensics team here immediately. We need to identify every person and collect every piece of evidence. No detail is too small. As the sun began to set, casting orange light across the hills, Joel stood in the middle of the vineyard and took a long breath. This place, once full of life, had become a graveyard. But now it would also be remembered as the place where the darkness was finally uncovered. Back at the police station, Trevor Langley sat in an interrogation room, no longer smiling. He didn't look rich anymore. His suit was wrinkled. His hair was messy. The confidence was gone from his eyes. Detective Harris sat across from him with another officer. A camera recorded every word. We know you own the vineyard, Harris said. We know your company owns the vans. We found your fingerprints in the storage unit. And we know what you did to Detective Ryan Chase. Trevor didn't speak. Harris leaned forward. We found the girls. The kids. The chair. The tank. We even have the names of your helpers. It's over. Finally, Trevor looked up. His voice was calm. Do you know how much money there is in this business? Harris blinked. There are people who will pay anything for what they want, Trevor continued. Do you think this ends with me? I'm just one man. They'll replace me. You tortured a federal agent, Harris snapped. You kidnapped children. I built a system, Trevor said coldly. One that worked. Joel entered the room at that moment. And we'll destroy that system, he said. Trevor looked at him and smiled faintly. Ah, the loyal partner. Joel stepped forward and placed a thick folder on the table. Every rental contract. Every payment. Every fake name. We've got it all. And Ryan Chase, the man you thought you broke, he's alive. He's going to testify. Trevor's face twitched. The smile vanished. This time, Joel said, leaning in, you don't get to hide behind suits and donations. Trevor was silent. We're charging you with everything, Joel added. Kidnapping. Torture. Murder. Human trafficking. You'll never see the sky again. Trevor looked away. Later that night, Joel visited the hospital. Ryan was in a quiet room with soft lighting. And 4 ran into his arm and a nurse was checking his temperature. He looked a little stronger but the pain was still there. Hey, Joel said, pulling up a chair. Ryan smiled weakly. Told you I was a tough one. Joel laughed. You were always stubborn. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Ryan's face grew serious. I need to tell you everything, he said. They didn't just torture me for fun. They wanted information. About our investigation into the trafficking ring. I gave them everything, Joel. After weeks, months, I broke. No one blames you, Joel said quickly. I do, Ryan whispered. Because of me they moved their network. Changed their routes. They hurt more kids. I was supposed to stop them. You did, Joel said. Because of you we found them. And because of a homeless man who could have sold your badge, but didn't. Because of a girl who spoke up when it was dangerous. Because of all of that, we stopped them. Ryan's eyes filled with tears. You really believe that? Joel nodded. I do. Just then, Suri and her friend entered the room with a social worker. Ryan blinked in surprise. Are you the man they hurt because you tried to stop the bad people? Suri asked. Ryan nodded slowly. You're a hero, her friend whispered. Ryan's lips trembled. I'm not a hero. Yes, you are, Suri said and gently reached for his hand. Because you didn't give up. Joel stood back as the girls sat beside Ryan's bed. He watched the 3 of them, broken, yet still holding on to something stronger than fear. Hope. The courtroom was packed. Reporters stood outside with microphones, whispering into cameras. Inside, people filled every bench, waiting for the trial of Trevor Langley to begin. It had only been 2 weeks since the vineyard rescue, but the entire country now knew the name. Headlines screamed, Billionaire caught running child trafficking ring. Federal agent found alive after 4 years in captivity. The Vineyard of Horrors. Detective Joel Adams sat beside Prosecutor Jenkins as they looked over the files one last time. Across the courtroom, Trevor sat with his lawyer, wearing a plain gray suit. The man who once smiled for pictures with governors and school kids now stared at the floor, pale and silent. Joel looked at him with a hard face. No anger. Just focus. Ryan wasn't in the room. His health was still too fragile. But his video testimony had already been recorded. And the jury would hear everything. Outside the courthouse, Suri stood holding her friend's hand tightly. They weren't allowed inside because of their age, but a kind officer let them stand near the door and listen through a speaker. Their social worker, Miss Karen, stayed close, keeping a watchful eye. Inside, the judge entered the room. Everyone stood, then sat. The trial began. Prosecutor Jenkins stood. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, today you will hear of a crime so cruel, so carefully hidden, it lasted for years without being stopped. Children were stolen. Families were torn apart. A police officer was taken and tortured for trying to do the right thing. This was not the work of a poor man desperate for food. This was the plan of a powerful man who used his money, charm, and businesses to build a secret trade in human lives. Trevor's lawyer stood and tried to twist the story. My client is a respected man. He ran charities, helped orphanages. He didn't know what happened at those properties. He was tricked, blamed unfairly. But the jury didn't seem convinced. One by one the evidence came out. Martin Wells, the homeless man, testified. He stood nervously in a clean shirt, his hands shaking. I could have just walked away, he said. But when I saw that badge, I knew something bad happened there. Suri spoke through video. She told them what she saw, what she knew. He told me if I talked, they'd make me disappear too, she said. But I couldn't stay quiet anymore. Then came Ryan's video. He looked directly into the camera, his voice soft but clear. My name is Ryan Chase. I was a detective. I was taken 4 years ago while working on a case. They hurt me. They kept me in the dark, in pain for years. But I'm alive. And I remember everything. And I'm ready to tell you the truth. He named names. He described rooms. He told them how Trevor ordered everything. How he was moved from place to place. How he watched other people, children, disappear never to be seen again. The courtroom was silent as he spoke. Even Trevor Langley, the man who had smirked through the first day, now sat motionless, sweat on his forehead. After days of testimony, the jury left the room. Joel waited. Everyone waited. 2 hours later they returned. The judge asked for the verdict. The head juror stood. We find the defendant guilty, on all counts. People in the courtroom gasped. Trevor didn't move. The judge looked at him with firm eyes. You have been found guilty of crimes so vile, so heartbreaking, that words hardly describe them. You will spend the rest of your life in prison. No parole. No mercy. As the officers pulled Trevor from the room, Joel stood. He looked into Trevor's eyes one last time. You lost, he said quietly. Trevor said nothing. Outside the courthouse, reporters rushed toward Joel. Detective Adams, do you think justice was served? He looked at the cameras and replied, Justice is not just about punishment. It's about truth. And today the truth was heard. He walked away before they could ask more questions. At the hospital, Ryan sat near a window wrapped in a blanket. His skin was still pale, but his eyes looked brighter than before. A small TV on the wall showed the news. Trevor Langley sentenced to life in prison. Ryan turned off the TV and looked out the window. A knock came at the door. It was Suri and her friend, along with Miss Karen. Hi, Ryan said with a small smile. We wanted to see how you're doing, Suri said, holding a small drawing. Ryan took it gently. It showed him standing in front of a bright sun with children around him. I'm not as strong as this picture, he said. Yes, you are, Suri replied. You gave us hope. Ryan's hands trembled as he placed the drawing on the table. Thank you. Back at the police station, Joel and Harris sat in the break room. The case was over. But the fight wasn't. There are more out there, Harris said. This was just one ring. Joel nodded. We'll find them. One at a time. Later that night, Joel visited the vineyard one last time. It was now sealed off with metal gates. A sign hung outside. This place is a crime scene. Do not enter. Joel stood quietly. The wind blew through the dead vines. Somewhere in the shadows, an owl hooted. He closed his eyes. He remembered the laughter he used to share with Ryan back when things were simple. He remembered the sound of Suri's voice, shaky but strong. He remembered Martin, poor, scared but brave enough to speak. It wasn't just the police that solved this. It was people. Regular, broken, scared people. Who chose to do the right thing. And because of them the nightmare had ended. Joel got into his car and drove off into the night. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring. But tonight at least the children were safe. The new safe house was quiet. It sat on a hill just outside the city, far away from busy streets and loud sirens. It was painted light yellow with tall trees around it and a small garden in the back. It wasn't big but it felt peaceful. This was where Suri and the other rescued girls were now living. Inside, the girls sat in a circle, each holding a soft blanket and cup of warm tea. Some still jumped at loud noises. Some didn't talk much. But slowly, day by day, the fear inside them was getting smaller. Miss Karen, their social worker, stood near the door, watching with a soft smile. "You're all very strong," she said. "What happened to you was not your fault. And now no one can hurt you again." Suri glanced at her friend, Malia, who was still thin and quiet. They had shared everything, the dark room, the hunger, the fear. But now they shared something else, freedom. "I want to visit Detective Joel," Suri said softly one day. "And Ryan." Miss Karen nodded. "I think that's a good idea." That afternoon they drove to the hospital. Joel was already there, sitting beside Ryan's bed. Ryan's hands were still bandaged, but his face looked better. There was color in his cheeks again. He was even reading a book. When the girls walked in, Ryan smiled. "Suri. Malia. Look at you both, standing strong." Malia walked up and hugged him gently. It was the first time she had hugged anyone since she was rescued. "You saved me," she whispered. Ryan shook his head. "You saved yourselves. I just held on long enough." Joel sat up. "Ryan's going to be released soon. His doctors say he's healing faster than anyone expected." "Because I want to live," Ryan said. "I want to see all of you grow up, laugh, and have good lives." Joel looked at Suri. "How are things at the safe house?" "It's quiet," she said. "I like quiet now." "Good," Joel replied. "That's what you deserve." They talked for a while longer, sharing small jokes and memories. Then Suri said, "Do you think other kids are still out there? Like us?" Joel nodded. "Yes. And we're going to find them." That night, back at the police station, Joel pulled out a file marked Crosswind. It had names, places, codes. It was the last file Ryan had been working on before he disappeared. Ryan had told him that Trevor Langley was part of something much bigger, a web of people stretching across countries. Powerful people who hid behind businesses and donations. People who traded lives like money. Joel stared at the file for a long time. Then he made a decision. He walked into the chief's office and placed the file on her desk. "I want to reopen this case," he said. The chief looked at him. "You just cracked the biggest human trafficking case in state history. Are you sure you're ready?" Joel's voice was steady. "We saved 30 people. That's a victory. But this file, it leads to more. If we stop now, the ones who helped Trevor will keep going." The chief opened the file and flipped through it. "All right. But you're not doing this alone." "I don't plan to." By the next morning, a new task force was formed. Joel was at the head. Harris was on it too. And Ryan, now working part-time from the hospital, offered everything he could remember. They started with one name. Then another. Each clue opened a door to another. One led to a fake orphanage in another city. One led to a shipping warehouse where girls were being hidden in trailers. One led to a crooked lawyer who had helped change records and names. In just 2 weeks they found 9 more children. Suri read about it in the newspaper at the safe house. "Detective Adams and his team rescue 9 more from Crosswind," the headline said. She folded the paper and smiled. "Joel keeps his promises," she told Malia. One evening, Ryan visited the safe house for the first time. He wore a jacket and gloves to protect his still healing skin, but he stood tall. When the girls saw him, they cheered. He laughed, really laughed, for the first time in years. "I don't know what to say," he said shyly. "You don't have to say anything," Suri replied. "You just have to keep living." Later Joel arrived too. They sat around a fire in the garden. Malia roasted marshmallows while Joel told stories of when he and Ryan were young detectives. The girls laughed, wide-eyed and amazed that even heroes had clumsy days and bad haircuts. It was peaceful. Then Joel stood and faced the group. "There's something I need to tell you all," he said. "You are not just survivors. You're warriors. And you've changed everything." He held up a medal. "This is for Martin Wells. The man who didn't stay silent. He'll never be forgotten." Then he handed small necklaces to each girl, simple, silver hearts. "You remind us why we do this," Joel said. "To protect. To fight. To never give up." The girls put them on, some with tears, some with smiles. That night, Suri couldn't sleep. She looked out the window at the stars and whispered, "Thank you." To the sky. To Joel. To Ryan. To everyone who chose to care when they didn't have to. The world wasn't fixed yet. But the light was coming back. One rescued life at a time. 3 months had passed. The old vineyard had been torn down. In its place, a memorial garden now grew. Small flowers filled the space where pain once lived. A white stone stood in the center with words carved into it. For the voices that were silenced, and the voices that rose up. People came from all over to see it. Survivors left ribbons and messages. Families who had lost someone placed photos and candles. Even strangers, people who never knew what had happened there, came and cried quietly. Suri stood beside the stone with Malia. The wind brushed their hair as they held hands. "I'm not afraid anymore," Malia said softly. "Me neither," Suri replied. "I still get scared sometimes, but I know we're not alone." They turned to see Detective Joel walking toward them with Ryan beside him. Ryan still limped a little when he walked, and his hands were covered in thin gloves. But his eyes were strong now. Joel had changed too. He looked more tired but also more focused. Like someone who had seen too much and decided never to stop fighting. "I knew I'd see you two here," Joel said, smiling. Suri smiled back. "We came to say goodbye. We're leaving tomorrow." "You are?" Ryan asked. "Yes," Malia said. "We're going to live with a new family in the mountains. They have a dog and a big kitchen and they like to laugh." Joel knelt in front of them. "You both deserve all of that. And more." Ryan reached into his coat and pulled out 2 small pins. "These were given to us when we finished the academy. It meant we were protectors of people." He pinned one on Suri and one on Malia. "You're protectors too now," he said. "You protected each other. You spoke up. You showed courage when grown men ran away." The girls looked down at the pins, then back at the men who had fought so hard for them. "We won't forget you," Suri whispered. "You don't have to," Joel replied. "Because we'll never forget you either." They hugged tightly, the kind of hug that makes time stop for a second. Then Suri and Malia walked toward the car that would take them to their new life. Joel and Ryan stood side by side watching them go. "They'll be okay," Ryan said. "I know," Joel replied. The wind picked up slightly. Joel looked toward the garden. "Did you ever think," he asked quietly, "that all of this would come from one man who just didn't stay quiet?" Ryan nodded. "Martin Wells saved all of them. He saw something terrible and told someone. He didn't have money. Or power. Just courage." Joel smiled. "Sometimes that's all it takes." Ryan's phone buzzed. He looked down. "We got another lead. 2 more names linked to Crosswind. One of them's in the next city." Joel reached into his coat and pulled out his keys. "Let's go." They walked back to Joel's car, the same car he had driven to the storage unit that day all those months ago. The same car that had carried Ryan to the hospital. Now it carried both of them forward, partners again. As the tires rolled onto the road, Joel looked at Ryan. "You still sure you want to do this?" Ryan grinned. "I didn't survive all that just to sit at home." They drove off into the horizon, 2 men who had seen the worst of the world but still believed in the best of it. Back at the memorial garden, the white stone stood tall. And carved on the back in small, simple letters were the words, "When one voice speaks up, darkness begins to lose." Sometimes, it takes just one voice, one person who refuses to stay silent, to spark a chain that saves lives. A homeless man. A frightened girl. A detective who never gave up. Together, they pulled back the curtain on a darkness that had lived in silence for too long. This story is more than just about pain. It's about survival, courage, and the quiet strength of people who choose to care. If this story moved you in any way, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Spesh Stories, where true courage, hope, and justice come alive one story at a time.